so glad you're here. That's the cutest top. Well, now, we are workshopping this, which means that we are sort of taking it out for a trial run, and we would love your input. Our email addresses are on the back of the program. And when we go to my hometown White Bluff to premiere this, my mom will do the house announcement, because she does the house announcement of every show that I do. And because she says, well, I do it better than the others. The mayor's way too long-winded. So we thought it would only be fair that I give you Helen's house announcement. Well, welcome everybody. I'm just so glad you're here and that you came here tonight. I sure appreciate it. And I want to thank the Pomona Park Town Hall and Joan O'Connor and the Beautification Committee for the lovely refreshments over there. Now, I want you to take the time to turn off all of your electronic devices. I don't know why you brought them in the first place, but you just need to turn those off. Now, I also have been told to tell you that the illuminated exit signs have been checked and are clear exits from the building. But frankly, if you've been sitting here for 30 minutes and you hadn't got that figured out yet, me telling you is not going to make any difference. I also want to say that word of mouth is our best form of advertisement. So if you like the show, go out and tell everybody. And if you didn't, well, you know what they say. You can't say something nice about something, just don't say anything at all. I think you're going to enjoy it. And so sit back and relax for Always Nina, a Tennessee story and songbook. with my mom's best friend, Ani. And we would sit there on the front porch having snacks and drinks, waiting for the Lawrence Welk show to start. Now, I was the only child, and I'm sure after a while I'd get a little antsy. So Sam would lean down and pick me up and set me on his tall shoulders, and we would go touring. Now, touring meant that we crossed the street first to Mr. Zolly Jr. Bibb's gas station. Mr. Jr. was the richest man in town, by a lot. He owned the Gulf filling station, he owned the GMC dealership, he owned a fleet of milk trucks, and a ton of land. Now, if you ever, once you graduated or looking for a summer job, either went to Sam, who I was riding on his shoulders, or Mr. Jr., and he'd always say, well, I'll help you get the job, but it's up to you to keep it. So then we'd walk across the street to Mr. Newell Jackson's grocery store and funeral home, fresh meat. Now we would go in and I could have my choice of treats. And Sam always thought it was so funny that I ignored all the barrels of penny candy, but I would point unerringly at that big, round, sweating hoop of yellow cheese under the glass, and that was my treat. Now, Mr. Newell Jackson's, his home had been there, his grocery store had been there for quite a while, even when my daddy was a boy. And he had acquired that most prized possession of all adolescent boys, fake poop. Well, he thought how funny it would be for him to slip in the grocery store and place that fake poop on top of the barrel of beans. And he did just that, and slipped around the corner to wait to see what happened. Well, it wasn't too long for he heard Mr. Newell calling his wife. Reen! The cat's poop did the beans again. Well, I sincerely doubt if he got into trouble. My mother said, oh, good grief, he was the town pet. They called him Little Billy Cathy, whose mama died. Now, my father feared the Ides of March. And I am sure he is looking down from heaven going, sweetheart, not the Ides of March, not during the Ides of March. He had sort of a good reason. His father and he shared the same birthday. And his mother died upon giving birth to him. So my grandfather lost a wife, and my father lost a mother. Years later, my dad, half-brother, was killed on their mutual birthday. So my father lost a half-brother, and his father lost a son. He also, his best friend, was killed on his birthday. And my grandfather died on their birthday. So when Daddy's birthday was coming around, he really just wanted us to sit in one place and not move. Well, my granny would tell the story of my grandmother, Roxy. And she said that when Billy was born, she knew that she was not going to make it. But the doctor would not let her hold my father for fear that the excitement would be too much. And Granny said she could see it wouldn't make any difference at all. So when old Doc Chapman slipped out to the outhouse, Granny slipped into the bedroom and scooped up my dad and came and put him in Grandma Roxy's arms. She got to hold him till Granny heard the doctor come back, and she picked him up and took him back to the bedroom. She died an hour later. My grandfather was wild with grief. He loved her better than anything. And Granny took to her bed. This was the second adult child she had lost in just a very few years. Well, when she heard that my grandfather was going to give my dad away to a blind farmer, as Daddy would later say, so I could be a C&I boy, Granny got up and she went to my grandfather and she said, you cannot give away Roxy's baby. And he said, I don't know how to take care of a baby. And she said, well, I do. He said, well, you're sick. And she said, I'll get well. And she took him. She'd tell how I'd never raised a bottle baby before, and at first I was making the milk all wrong. But I noticed on the back of the Eagle brand milk can there was where you could send away for a quarter and get a baby book. And she did. And she said, and once I started making the milk right, why, Billy was a great baby. Mom said, yeah, she really got it right, because I think he carried a Bible until he was 6 years old. They'd send him into town. Can you imagine sending a 4 or 5-year-old walking into town? And he would have a bottle for the way there and a bottle in his hip pocket for the trip home. When he moved into the house, he was just, of course, a baby, and Granny had 2 sons at home, my Uncle Bracy and my Uncle Woodrow. My Uncle Woodrow always felt a great sense of responsibility for his parents, and he worked every odd job that he could find, but it was the Great Depression, and jobs were hard to find. Well, he heard about the chance for a job in Nashville, 30 miles away. His only way of getting there was to walk, so he put his shoes in a bag so that when he got there, they wouldn't be worn out when he went into the interview. He walked to Nashville, and by the time he got there, the job had already been taken. But when he walked out, next door was a Navy recruitment office, and he walked in and signed up for what was going to be a 10-year hitch. Well, he was stationed at Pearl Harbor December 7th, 1941, and it was 50 years before he could tell this story. And he said, it's just like you hear. He said, they were sound asleep when all the sirens started going off and the alarms. He said, and we ran up and took to our guns. He said, and yes, we fought in our skivvies. He said, one person had thought to grab a helmet. He said, and they were passing it among the 4 of us as we manned that gun. He said, when it came to me, I just flung it in the ocean, and I said, this is not going to help. And he said, I really didn't think anything was going to help. They fought as hard as they could, and he said he remembers seeing the faces of the Japanese pilots as they dive-bombed the ship, and he saw the bomb go down the smokestack of the Arizona. He was on the USS Raleigh, and it was bombed as well and severely damaged. And he said, we fought until we ran out of ammunition, and then we threw potatoes at the plane. Now, back in White Bluff, my granny and the people there were hearing that Franklin Delano Roosevelt stated that this was a day that would live in infamy. And they were terrified. Granny said they had one of the few radios in the town, and so many people came and just crowded in to their home to hear news, desperate. And every day, my daddy went to the post office to find out if the letter had come. And he went, and he went, and he went, and it was 3 weeks before they heard a word. And Daddy went to the post office that day, and Mr. St. Clair, who was the postmaster, opened up the door and stepped out, and over the heads of the people, put the letter in my daddy's hand and said, run. And Daddy did. When he got there and Granny opened the letter, she said, I thought we still wouldn't know because it was so censored. But they got the most important thing. I'm okay. My Uncle Woodrow came home and always remained so good to his family. He bought my daddy's 8th grade graduation suit and his high school graduation suit. When he passed away at the age of 89, he was the oldest surviving Pearl Harbor veteran in the state of Tennessee, and the best man that I ever knew. And then there's my Uncle George. George Cathy's overalls walked Tennessee end to end. Every kid and dog that George could meet became his lifelong friend. George Cathy's overalls were filled with jokes and lies. In a storytelling contest, Uncle George would sure win the prize. Now, my grandfather was out plowing his garden, and Papa had the mule hooked up, and he was plowing away when he saw my Uncle George walking up the hill. He said, hey, George, stop and tell me a lie. My Uncle George said, I ain't got time. Houston Cathy has just dropped dead. My grandfather was in shock. He unhitched that mule and got it to the barn. He went to the house to change into his dress overalls and his Sunday shirt. He told my grandmother, he said, Emma, Houston Cathy's just dropped dead. And she headed off the kitchen to make a chess pie for the family. When my grandfather got to Houston Cathy's to see if he could help out, he walked up in the yard, and there sat Houston Cathy drinking a big old glass of iced tea on the front porch. My grandfather just blinked and he said, George told me you dropped dead. He said, well, I didn't. My grandfather just shook his head and went back home, changed into his work clothes, and told Grandmama, well, I reckon we're going to have chess pie with supper tonight. And he went back to plowing. A few days later, he saw my Uncle George, and he said, George, why on earth did you tell me that Houston Cathy had dropped dead? He said, well, you told me to stop and tell you a lie. George Cathy's on the roads from Tennessee into it. Every kid and dog that George would meet became his lifelong friend. George Cathy's on the roads filled with jokes and laughs. In the storytelling contest, Uncle George would surely win the prize. Now, one day, my Uncle George and his friend Hammer Deal, they were bored and looking for something to do. And they thought how funny it would be to take a bar of soap and soak the train rails right at the ridge where the train had to pull that steep grade. I'm going to stop here and tell you all that these were two grown men. These weren't teenagers. They weren't children. And don't try this at home. Well, anyway, they got a bar of soap and they soaked the train tracks and went and hid in the bushes. Well, it wasn't long before a freight train came through and it hit that part of the rail and it just spun and spun and spun and couldn't make it up the track until it spun the soap off and then it went on. George and Hammer just hid in the bushes and cackled like hens. On the way back, Uncle George had a thought, because you see, my daddy always said that Hammer was a couple of hush puppies short of a catfish dinner. So he said, now Hammer, don't you tell nobody that we soaked those rails tonight. Oh no, George, I won't tell him. Well, they got to Uncle George's house and he got out a pot of beans to warm up and make a pan of cornbread. And he had a wood-fired stove. And just about the time that the beans got to where if you just blink too long, they're going to scorch, there was a knock at the door. And Uncle George said, Hammer, go see who's at the door. But when he opened the door, there stood the sheriff, big old badge, just a-gleaming. And before the sheriff could say one word, Hammer said, I swear to God, I did not help George Cathy soak those train rails. Well, the sheriff had just dropped by to say hi, and he ended up taking George and Hammer to jail. George Cathy's on the roads from Tennessee into it. Every kid and dog that George would meet became his lifelong friend. George Cathy's on the roads filled with jokes and laughs. In the storytelling contest, Uncle George would surely win the prize. Now, my Uncle George would come every Thanksgiving and Christmas and eat dinner with us. And my mom had one rule. He could not have been drinking and still come. So about 2 or 3 days, Mom or Daddy would get word to him that, remember, Thanksgiving's coming, we're going to come pick you up. Oh, yeah, bud. And so Daddy would go and get him. My brother and I couldn't wait. Because all these stories I'm telling you, guess who told them to me? He did. And we would laugh until our sides ached. Well, one Thanksgiving, we just had delicious dinner, and my Uncle George reared back in his chair, and he said, you know, if I didn't get to come here on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they cut off my Social Security check, why, I'd go throw rocks at the post office window every winter so they'd put me in the federal penitentiary. They feed you 3 good meals, you got a nice warm place to sleep. And he looked at us and he said, now kids, if you're ever going to commit a crime, always do it on the federal level, because you don't want to serve no state time. The only thing funnier was the horrified look on my mother's face, and my daddy laughing so loud you could have heard him in Nashville. George Cathy's on the roads from Tennessee into it. Every kid and dog that George would meet the way that he wanted to live it. So it was only fitting that when it was time for his funeral, that reflected. Well, I sang John Denver's Boy from the Country, and of course his favorite hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Now, just about the time that the minister was standing up and giving me the nod to start What a Friend We Have in Jesus, and the place was packed because everybody knew my Uncle George. And I was in the other room with the organ, and the pallbearers were all on this side. My Uncle Bracy decided this would be a good time to go to the bathroom. So we all pretended he hadn't gone to the bathroom, and I played a couple of extra verses of What a Friend We Have in Jesus, when suddenly we heard bam, 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 bam. We all jumped. The pallbearers got the giggles. And my Uncle Robert D. looked over at me and he said, "It's Bracy." Well, about that time the banging stopped and my Uncle Bracy walked out, and he looked rather shaken, and he said, "The door, it just wouldn't open. I tried to open it and it wouldn't open, and then all of a sudden it just came open." And I thought, Uncle George got one last wish. And he just couldn't resist playing it on Uncle Bracy. Now, I didn't tell a soul that I had thought that, but about 2 weeks later, I was reading the Nashville Tennessean. There was an article called Thompson Station. And Jerry Thompson was a reporter that did sort of local color. Well, he would often come down to my White Bluff and get my dad, and they would go sit at the Wharf's No Beer Cafe and have lunch, and Daddy would tell him stories. And sure enough, in just a few weeks, they'd appear. Well, in that article it said, "I was with my good friend Billy Cathy, who told me about his Uncle George passing away and how he must have got one last wish." I thought, see, we both thought Uncle George got one more time. You know, I think death in the South, or at least death in Middle Tennessee, is done differently than anywhere else. In White Bluff, when somebody passes away, I call it the machine. The women rise up and they start cooking food. And they've got it organized. It's like, okay, Sandra Sue's going to take food over to the funeral home because the visitation is for 3 days. And then I'm going to take food over to this family, and Miss Betty's going to take food to this family, and it's all, and they're not showing up the door with a little casserole. Oh no, my mama had a laundry basket that was strictly for carrying the food to people who had had someone pass away. Now, my mom was a busy woman. She was a postal clerk full-time, plus she was taking me to piano lessons, speech lessons, play practice, band practice, choir practice. So when she got some extra time, she would make things up ahead, like a squash casserole, a green bean casserole, and a hash brown casserole, and maybe an apricot nectar cake, because all those things freeze really well. My brother and I referred to them as death dishes. So, you know, we all knew what was going to happen. But sometimes it was hard to know when somebody had passed away. So a funeral home, a local funeral home, started a hotline. And you could call and they would tell you everybody who had recently passed away. And my mom thought that was the most morbid thing she'd ever heard of. She said, "I hope that I never get to the place where the first thing I do when my feet hit the floor is called dial of death." Well, one day she got the word that Miss Betty Wolf, her boss, that her husband's brother had passed away. Well, Mom knew she would need food, so she started making a ham. She pulled a couple of casseroles out, and she made real green beans. Now, if you're not from the South, you may not know what that is. These are green beans that cook for at least, no less than 2 or 3 hours with a big old piece of fat back in them, right? Yeah. So she prepared all of this food, and she put it in the laundry basket, and she took it down to Miss Betty's and knocked on the door. When Miss Betty answered the door, Mom said, "Betty, I'm so sorry to hear about Bill's brother." Miss Betty said, "Well, he hadn't died yet. But I got a whole lot of company coming, so thank you for the food." Maybe Mama should have used dial of death. My mom wasn't much for the phone, and we all still aren't. But I swear, even in the days before caller ID, she could tell who was calling by the way the phone rang. She'd go, I just know that's Hazel, and she is going to talk my ear off. I don't have time to talk with her today. And she would not answer the phone. Now, when I was growing up in a small town with not a whole lot of things to do, we went to everybody's vacation Bible school. It was like free camp. You know, from 8 to 12 you went, and after 12 o'clock you went down to the kitchen and they gave you those cheap little sandwich cream cookies and a cup of Kool-Aid. But Friday was the picnic. And you got the hot dogs that turned the bun pink, and some chips, and the sandwich creams, and a cup of Kool-Aid. But we would go to the Methodist, and we'd go to the Baptist, and we'd go to the Church of Christ. But one day I came home and I was crying because the minister's wife had told me that I was going to hell because I was a Methodist. Well, I wasn't but 9 years old, so I was very concerned about this. Well, my daddy, who was an over-the-road truck driver, happened to be there, and buddy, he was fit to be tied. My mama threw her body in front of the phone, going, you can't call the minister's wife and tell her off. My daddy said, I can. If she's telling my daughter she's going to hell. Another time I came home devastated. Now, I didn't always come home devastated. I was a pretty happy kid. During those lovely teenage years, Mama said she never knew who was getting off the bus, elated Nina or devastated Nina, because there was no in-between. Fortunately, they found theater for me and gave me an appropriate outlet for this personality. Well, anyway, that's what it was about. I had not got the lead role in the High School Musical my senior year. Oh, I was so upset, so upset. And my mom was a very practical woman and a very strong woman. She said, well, okay, so you didn't get the part. Why don't you just be in the Miss Dixon pageant? I went, Mama, I'm not a beauty queen. And she goes, well, 50% of the points are based on talent. I went, I don't know. I got to go to practice. And she's like, I'm calling Brenda Peeler. I'm going to the phone right now. I'm calling Brenda Peeler. And so she apparently called. It must have been fast with the rotary dial because I wasn't out the door. And she goes, Brenda wants to know what you're going to sing. And I said, I don't know. I guess summertime. And I went on to practice. Well, much to my surprise, if you ever see a copy of the Dixon Free Press, that I'm standing in front of it going, as they put the crown on my head, and everyone else, I won. I was the youngest contestant to compete in the Miss Tennessee pageant that year. 5'8" and weighing 103 pounds. Yeah, buddy. But say what you will about beauty pageants or scholarship pageants. The money I won from Miss Dixon and being a non-finalist talent winner and my vocal scholarship paid for my first year of college. Wow. Good girls always get caught. You take a bad girl who can steal a car, get pulled over, tell the police she stole it, they put her in the jail, she gets bailed out by somebody who 5 minutes ago couldn't have bought a package of Vita snacks, missed 3 court dates because they're just way too early in the morning and she didn't have a ride, duh, or she wouldn't have stole a car. Get 3 months probation for grand theft auto. But let a group of good girls decide to have a Las Vegas night where they're going to play games with play money, take the play money, and bid on prizes donated by the members, and all of the proceeds go to charity, and they get turned into the ATF. Have I moments when you think, oh my goodness, if there was a committee for the worst mother in the world, they would be coming and pinning a big blue ribbon on my chest. I have lots of those stories, but it's a short show. So the one that stands out in my mind is when I went back to college as a music major, you have to go to a certain number of concerts and recitals every semester. And so my daughter went with me. And when we were putting this together, I got to thinking about it. I thought, you know, she started going to these recitals with me when she was 3 months old until she was 3 years old. And I can't think of one time that I had to get up and take her out. And believe me, I would have. One little bit and would have been out that door. Well, this particular concert was the Westminster Choir College. They are one of the best choirs in the world. And they'd come to sing, and we were going. And the concert started at 7 o'clock, which was Roxy's bedtime. Well, she was sitting in my lap and listening to the music and eventually fell asleep. Now, I had noticed that when we walked into the concert hall, they had taken the lid off the grand piano completely. And I thought, I wonder what that's about. Well, on the very last song, a beautiful a cappella number, when those voices hit this chord in absolute perfect pitch, the accompanist pressed the damper pedal down. Their voices hit those exposed strings, setting off the overtone series, and this beautiful yet different chord shimmered above our heads. I heard 500 people take a big collective gasp, and we all jumped to our feet, applauding wildly as I dumped my sleeping daughter right on top. I was like, oh, and I leaned down and I picked her up. The people around me are staring at me, and I'm holding her and I'm patting her, because obviously she gave a cry of alarm, right? She's down on the concrete floor, and I'm patting her. And fortunately, their encore was the Wilhowsky Battle Hymn of the Republic. And even Roxy couldn't wail over that one. When we walked out to the lobby, I looked for the committee that was going to come and pin the badge on my chest, but they must have had somebody else that night because they weren't there. But you know, every now and then, you get a glimpse that maybe by accident, you're doing something right. Well, I was an independent school teacher, i.e., poverty. And so I cobbled a bunch of jobs together. You know, I taught voice lessons after school. I worked summer music camps, all of these things. But my big gig was I sung for the Dickson County Fair. All of the opening activities. Oh yes. National anthem for the tractor pull, the mule pulling, demolition derby, Little Miss pageant, and the fairest of the fair, the crown jewel. Now, for going down there every night of the fair and singing the national anthem, I got paid $250. That was more than I made teaching all week. And along with that, they gave me a card that my family could come and we could ride rides for free. That's big doings. So my daughter was 8 years old, and we had planned, I said, Roxy, you can have a friend. So she decided Mary Michael would come home with her from school. We would go to the fair. They would sit at the fence while I sang the Star Spangled Banner for, I believe it was a mule pulling that night. And then we would go ride rides. Roxy talked of nothing else, you know, where we were going to eat, what vendors we were going to do, of course, no carny food. And we were going to go to the Eastern Star booth. My mother made sure of that. Well, on Friday morning, we were driving into Nashville because I taught at the University School of Nashville. And Roxy said, Mama, I don't want to go to the fair. And I said, what? She said, I don't want to go to the fair. I go, Roxy, what on earth? Mary Michael's coming home with you. You've been talking of nothing else all week. She goes, no, I've decided I don't like fairs. I went, Roxy, what is going on? And she said, well, Mama, last night on the news, it said that the Ku Klux Klan was going to be at the Dickson County Fair. I said, now, Roxy, you don't think that I am afraid of a bunch of cowards in sheets, do you? She said, no, that's just it. You will never be able to keep your mouth shut, and they're going to kill you. To this day, that is one of the proudest moments in my life. My 8-year-old child knew that I had no tolerance for intolerance. Now, my daughter, y'all just sit back because I got to brag on. She's a triple threat. If you don't know what that is in theater, it's the most coveted thing to be in musical theater. She acts as well as she sings, as well as she dances. There is no difference in the level of talent, and let me tell you, when she sings, they sometimes have to nail the roof back on. Also with her high kicks. She's just published her 3rd novel and told me a week ago she finished the 4th in her series. And she works in the legal department of Aetna, and she said somebody in this family has got to get a real job. Our love of musicals was handed down from my father. At my christening, my dad set me on the organ and put my hands on the keys, willing that I would become a musician, and he did the same thing to Roxy. My mom always says that when it came to me learning music and to play the piano, that my dad was the encourager and she was the enforcer. And this is very true. This was her rule. Either I practiced my piano lessons or I washed up the dinner dishes. I play piano today because my mother did not have an automatic dishwasher. Now, Daddy, when he came through Nashville at the right time, after driving a truck, he would stop at a music store and he would pick up stacks of sheet music. Everything from the 1880s through the 1940s and everything Broadway. He'd come home, he'd say, come on, sweetheart, let's play and sing. And it meant I played, I sang, and he sat on the ottoman and flipped pages and said, no, that didn't sound quite right. And he'd sort of try to sing it to me and I'd fix it. He gave me the gift of sight reading, which I will be forever grateful. He also had every Broadway soundtrack known to man. And my favorite thing to do when I was alone in the house, and sometimes even if I wasn't, was to put on the records and I would sing and dance because we went to every movie. I mean, I sang to Julie Andrews and Shirley Jones and Barbara Cook and Mary Martin, and I had my own choreography. I'm sure it was wonderful since I didn't take dance. And I would sing those songs, and a lot of times I had gone in and auditioned for roles and I already had all the music memorized. And Roxy did the same thing. Because he gave us the love of theater and musicals. Because who doesn't love a good musical? Who doesn't love a good musical? From Music Man to Susical. Who doesn't crave a great show? The tunes are exciting with the costumes dancing, lighting. It's a passion you never outgrow. Oh, I feel that rush of adrenaline when the usher says, come on in. Come on in, let's go. Household entertainment, the overtures beginning, and it's time for the show. So much goes into the creation of a musical. It starts with an idea, or maybe Joan and Roger stop by your coach house apartment in Tuxedo Park and say, we have a proposal for you. We think your stories and your life will make a great musical. But before I can even draw breath to list all the reasons that this is not a possibility, Joan says, I'll write the music. I'll write the lyrics. I will record your stories, put them into a cohesive unit, creating a show. So we got to work. And so many people coming together, and so many of you out here tonight helping us create what we hope will be the next smash hit. 1, 2, 3. Checking actors' availability, check cast availability, rehearsing and rehearsing, trying every possibility. The scene setting prologue, which leads right into the dialogue, the top, twisting monologue, before the final, the lovers with the fully on the feet, and legitimacy, and walking, and lighting, and the actors' visibility, and oh, wait. Do you think that we could move a little more stage right and maybe a warmer gel. I feel like I look a little sallow. Did you say shallow? Not shallow, sallow. They're directors and producers and they all recorded viewers, writers, actors, singers, dancers, theater critics, illustrating, the lyricists and the dramatists, the percussionists and the pianists, the protagonists and the antagonists. Help! The leading lady needs an analyst. Thanks, Joan. I'm in my scene of the mezzanine where I can sing everything from act one to the final drum. I know the words to each song, but I don't sing along. 'Cause music as picture is something I know. Yes, from Pomona Park to Nashville, everyone you ask will be wanting to sing in their school. As long as there are stories to tell and music to sing, it's time for the show. I mean, what's a musical without dancing girls? Okay, dancing girls, but we're on a budget. But it was musicals that got me into the most trouble of all. It all started when I auditioned at the Thomaston Opera House for Sister Sarah in Guys and Dogs. And I was cast by he who shall not be named. Well, things went along well. I had some great roles. I played Dolly Levi, Marion Peru, Eliza Doolittle, the baker's wife in Into the Woods, Clara in Passion. I was having a wonderful time, but the trouble started when we moved back to White Bluff. It wasn't long before my friends were coming to me and saying, "Nina, I think something's going on." Well, hello, an actor. He was always able to wiggle his way around it and stuff, but finally, one morning, he came in, and he was there. He kissed me on the cheek at 4 a.m. and said he was going to go to get some set pieces out of the storage unit in Lyles before it got too hot. Now, I went back to sleep because I was exhausted. I was working 5 jobs so he could have his dream of the theater. But when I woke up at 7, there was a voice in my head, a voice that I'd never heard before, and I've never thankfully heard since. And it was a voice saying, "That's not where he is." Well, I thought, if I get ready in time, that I can still go over to her house and make my hair appointment, I'm going to do just that, because we don't miss our hair appointment, do we? No. Well, the voice kept urging me on, and I got ready in time, and I got in my car, and the whole time that voice was going, "Go. Don't turn around. Nope, you're not turning around. Go." But when I got to her, let's just call her Hoochie Coo. Yeah. When I got to Hoochie Coo's house, and I saw the driveway, there was nobody in it. And I thought, okay, maybe I have become a jealous shrew, but I've never been a jealous person. But rather than pull straight ahead and keep going, or coming into the driveway just a little bit and backing out, I pulled all the way into the driveway and discovered that it went around back. And there was his truck. Now, if you know me, you know that I really avoid confrontation. I hate it. But this time I got out of the car and I went and knocked on the sliding glass door, and I wouldn't have had this happen for the world. Her 12-year-old son came to the door, and I said, "Can you show me where your mama's bedroom is?" And he said, "Right there." And I said, "I think you better go back to bed." And he did. Well, I knocked on that door and I said, "He who shall not be named, you better come out here now." Wouldn't you love to have been a fly on the wall? Well, he kept asking weird questions like, "Where are you? Where are you?" I go, "Where am I?" On the other side of this door. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw him walking outside. This is a visual. Because he always walked like this.
walked up to me and he said, "What are you doing here? You are making a complete fool out of yourself. I'm here working on her mower." And I said, "Well, I've heard it called a lot of things in my life, but that's the first time I've heard that one." And you are right. I have been a fool, but I'm a fool no longer. And I'm going to my hair appointment, and you better have your bags packed and out of my house before the sun goes down. And I got in my car, and I saw him picking up his cell phone to call me, and I picked up my cell phone, and I caught his eye, and I threw it in the back seat. And I went to my hair appointment. Now, ladies, we know our hairstylist is 90% our psychiatrist and 10% our hairstylist. We tell them everything.
Yep.
Well, I walked in, and I sat down, and I think probably my hands were shaking a little bit, and I'm sure my face looked a little, and Chuck's looking over at me, and he's fixing somebody's hair. He was running a little bit behind. He kept looking back at me. I'm sure glad that wasn't my head of hair. Because he kept looking back, and finally he just gave up, and he goes, "I'll be right back." Kind of talks like Harvey Feinstein. So anyway, he came and he said, "What's going on?" I told him. He goes, "Well, come on back to the kitchen. I'm going to tell you the rest." So he gave me dates, times, everything but receipts. And he said, "But what I don't know, Dr. Mary does, so when I finish with your hair, you need to go see her." And so I did, because I wanted to have my ducks in a row this time. So I went to Dr. Mary's, and she even provided more information for me. And when I got in my car to head back home, my phone had 17 missed calls. Well, the next time it rang, I answered it. And he says, "If you don't come home now, we will never work this out." And I said, "Well, you're half right." Well, on my way home, I stopped at my mama's. And I walked in, and she wasn't there right then. I sat on the couch, and I probably cried a few tears and had a little pity party going. And my mom comes in, and she said, "Well, sugar, what are you doing here?" And I told her, and she said, "Well, honey, you can't be surprised." She said, "Good heavens, Miss Elsie asked me the other day if he had a sister, because somebody told her they'd seen him walking around White Bluff holding somebody's hand." Miss Elsie was blind and had been in the nursing home for 15 years. And Mama said, I told her, "No, Miss Elsie, he doesn't have a sister." And she said, "Poor Nina." Mom said, "Nope, nope, she's not poor Nina. And she's strong, and when she is ready to deal with this, she will." And I said, "Well, I'm ready to deal with it." Mom said, "Praise the Lord." So I had plans that night to go to the theater with 3 of my best friends to see the show. It was the Mikado. He had not cast me because he said my voice wasn't right for Gilbert and Sullivan. Well, anyway, I saw no reason to change those plans. And I was not going to walk in there looking pitiful and dressed dull. Oh, no. I went to get my best clothes because, honey, I was going to be Scarlet at the barbecue. Well, I called my best friend from high school, Luann, who I always run to in times of deep distress. We have a code. If I call and she doesn't answer and I leave a message that says, "Call me," that means drop everything and call. So I told her what happened, and she said, "Where are you? I'll be right there." And I said, "Well, we're going to go to the theater tonight with some friends. We're going to have dinner at Mac and Kate's." She said, "Well, call them and make one more reservation. I'll meet you there." But when I got out of the car and my friends from Nashville arrived, they looked at me and they went, "What's going on?" To this day, I don't know what my face looked like, but it must have been something. And I told them what had happened, and they said, "Oh, thank goodness, we truly thought you were going to die before you got out of that." Well, Luann was there, and she kept us laughing and cracking up. And they were a little late getting our check, so we were a little bit late getting to the theater. But we walked in, me and my 4 best friends, just as he was giving the house announcement. You should have seen the blood drain from his face. We had to spread out because the theater had a big crowd, and we had to sit all over in this black box theater. So no matter where he looked off stage during his performance, he met the unwavering glare of 5 fierce women. After the show, we were all out in the parking lot, and my friends from Nashville said, "What do you want us to do? Do you want to come spend the night with one of us in Nashville? You're more than welcome. We'll come and spend the night with you." And I said, "No, I'm going to go spend the night at my mom's and deal with the rest of this tomorrow, and I will see you at church." And they got in the car somewhat reluctantly and left. And then Luann looked at me and she said, "So what are we really going to do?" And I said, "Oh, no, I mean it. I'm just going to go grab some stuff that I have to have, and I'll go to Mom's." And I said, "But you know, come to think of it, I have a lovely set of Louis Vuitton matching black plastic trash bags. Why don't we go help him pack?" And we did. There are stories I can't tell. They hide deep inside. Those memories I can't share are hurts too deep to bear. Repeated choices made too often, a remembrance fast forgotten, cruelties I could not understand. But in this I'm not alone. You have them too. I know you do. These memories I can't share are stories I can't bear. No, not now, not for me. Those tales are not to be. Yet someday telling stories I can tell might set me free. Now, on that very same weekend, my old high school sweetheart, Alan Albert, was down here in his house in Fruitland, Florida, and his wife of 23 years was confessing to him that she had been having an affair with her blind ex-husband. You can't make this up. And we later found out that the blind ex-husband lived a half a mile from Hoochie Coo. Well, anyway, she tells him this is happening, and being the efficient, practical man my husband is, he says, "All right, we're going to start drawing up the marriage dissolution agreement," and started writing it up. But about that time, his mother, Sandra Sue, called and told him that his stepfather, Paul, had passed away and he needed to come home. So he told, well, let's just call her she who cannot be named, to put this all aside. They were going to go up to White Bluff, be with Sandra Sue, help her take care of stuff, and they weren't going to mention it. Well, I have known Alan since I was 1 and he was born. His mother, we went to the same church for 17 years. I used to walk in and his grandfather would put him on the bell pull and get it going, now he'd be riding up. Well, my mother called me and she said, "Now I know that you were busy getting," well, I'm going to say exactly what she said because she really didn't like it. But she said, "I know you're busy, but Sandra Sue's Paul died. Now, don't worry about making food. I've already made enough for both of us and put both our names on the card. But you're going to have to go by the funeral home and pay your respects." Well, there's no sense in arguing, so I did. Now, I walked in. Miss Sandra Sue was there in the main room, and I went up to her and I said, "Miss Sandra Sue, I am so sorry for your loss." And she said, "Well, well, thank you, honey. Alan's in the kitchen. And I thought, with his wife of 23 years. See, I kind of think maybe Miss Sandra Sue always wanted me to be her daughter-in-law. Because Alan was later to tell me that every time my picture appeared in the paper with an article, she cut it out and mailed them to him for 30 years. So I walked in, I breezed in, I kind of walked past him because the last time I saw him, he didn't have tattoos from here to here and here to here and a ponytail. But I walked back and I saw him, and I'm a theater person, so I just threw my arms around him and gave him a big hug. And he said, he thought, who is this? He said, but then you spoke. And I thought, huh. He said, but when you pulled away and I saw your eyes, I thought, oh, I know who this is. Well, he didn't know I was going through what I was going through. I didn't know he was going through what he was going through. And I breezed on out to take care of the details. A little while later, Lou Ann's husband, Keith, came to the funeral home. See, we dated best friends in high school. And they were sitting on the big sofa in the funeral home, and Keith looked at Alan and he said, how are you and she who shall not be named doing? You don't ask somebody who's been married 23 years how their marriage is going. You assume it's all right. Well, Alan said, yeah. And he said, well, I happen to know that Nina's going to be getting a divorce. And Alan said, Keith looked at him. He looked at Keith. And they both turned